Let's go Dolphins! The Miami Dolphins are about to make some crucial decisions, and believe me, what's happening behind the scenes right now could completely change the fate of this season. A controversial ESPN article has just set fans ablaze, proposing a move so ill-advised it's hard to believe it's not satire. And what's worse, Chris Grier's silence may be signaling something even more troubling. Stick around, because what I'm about to reveal is the kind of behind-the-scenes chaos that makes or breaks a Super Bowl run. But before we continue, make sure to hit the like button if you've been a Dolphins fan for over 16 years. Maximum respect. If possible, write something like "Let's go Dolphins. I'll always be with you." Well, let's get straight to the point. So, here's the deal. ESPN's Aaron Schatz recently published an article proposing one last offseason move for each of the 32 NFL teams. And what does he suggest for the Dolphins? Sign 33-year-old wide receiver Keenan Allen. Yes, you heard that right. A proposal with no strategic logic whatsoever, and yet it's being touted as if it would boost Miami's playoff chances. Look, no disrespect to Keenan Allen's resume. The man put up 7 touchdowns and over 700 yards last season with Chicago. But let's be real, he's 33, past his prime, and ESPN's own receiving metrics show a decline in performance. The Dolphins already have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle locking down the outside. The issue isn't offensive firepower, it's the lack of depth at cornerback and on the offensive line. The real red zone and slot issues? They've already taken steps to address those, bringing in guys like Malik Washington and Westbrook. Malik Washington, despite limited NFL reps, showed flashes of promise. Westbrook isn't some unknown either. He had 9 touchdowns last season. So why pour back $11 million? Yes, that's Keenan Allen's estimated market value into a position that's not a priority, especially when your total cap space hovers around $13 million. And it gets worse. If the Dolphins do end up trading Jalen Ramsey, which is still uncertain due to Miami's high asking price, they might clear up some cap space. But even then, why would you burn a huge chunk of it on a third wide receiver when your top concerns are still unresolved? Aaron Schatz might think he's cracked the code, but this is completely tone-deaf to Miami's actual roster needs. The article didn't even mention extending Christian Wilkins, who, by the way, is a much more valuable piece to this defense. Instead, Schatz suggests the Dolphins splurge on a veteran slot receiver. It's as if he hasn't watched a single Dolphins game or examined the roster at all. What's truly infuriating is that when you look at his suggestions for other teams, most are focused on practical moves. The Bills extending their left guard, the Jets re-signing Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson, the Ravens working on Lamar Jackson. Logical moves that make sense based on actual team needs. But for the Dolphins, he proposes a 33-year-old wide receiver. It's like a bad joke. The Dolphins have glaring holes in the secondary. No clear starting cornerback opposite Xavier Howard. No depth behind him either. The offensive line is a patchwork with injury concerns across the board, Austin Jackson, James Daniels, and others. And we're supposed to just ignore all that and chase Keenan Allen? No. This is why the fan base is so often frustrated. Chris Grier, whose decisions have been inconsistent at best, is still calling the shots. The roster needs support in the trenches and coverage, not in the slot. And yet, we keep seeing media narratives that ignore reality in favor of flashy, headline-grabbing ideas. So here we are, once again, watching national analysts get it wrong about the Dolphins. The front office has major decisions to make. Training camp is around the corner, and there's no room left for missteps. Miami can't afford to gamble on names instead of filling needs. This team has a shot, a real shot, if it patches the obvious holes. Let's pick up right where we left off, because this topic is far from over. The suggestion of signing Keenan Allen doesn't just miss the mark, it exposes a bigger issue that Dolphins fans have been battling with for years, a front office that struggles to prioritize. While other teams are out here securing foundational pieces, Miami is still entertaining fantasy scenarios that do nothing to move the needle. So, let's talk about the real elephant in the room. Cornerback. At the time of this recording, there's no clear CB2 next to Xavier Howard. And let's be honest, Howard isn't getting any younger. The drop-off in performance last season was noticeable, and relying on him to be the sole veteran presence in the secondary is playing with fire. Meanwhile, names like Rasul Douglas, Asante Samuel Jr., Mike Hilton, and even Stephon Gilmore are just floating in free agency limbo. Veterans who could bring experience, stability, and most importantly, coverage. Now ask yourself, why isn't Miami aggressively pursuing one of these corners? Why is a national article even entertaining the idea of a luxury receiver before shoring up the defensive backfield? because it's easy to sell names like Keenan Allen. It's harder to acknowledge that this team still has depth issues that have haunted them for years. And that's not all. Look at the offensive line. You've got Austin Jackson and James Daniels both dealing with injuries. Terron Armstead, while elite when healthy, has a long injury history. Behind them, you're looking at a mix of inexperience and inconsistency. Patrick Paul is entering a pivotal year, and Liam Eichenberg, while versatile, has never solidified himself as a reliable starter. That's your backup unit. And yet, we're supposed to believe the better investment is in a third wideout? This is what separates contenders from pretenders. Smart teams build from the trenches. They lock down corners who can keep the game in front of them. They invest in protecting their quarterback, especially one like Tua Tagovailoa, whose history with concussions and injury concerns demands the best protection possible. If Tua goes down, the season is over. That's not fear-mongering. That's reality. So why are we talking about Keenan Allen instead of upgrading the line that keeps Tua upright? This is exactly the kind of thing that should have cost Chris Greer his job. The man's track record is littered with questionable picks and poor contract decisions. He's had some hits, sure, but at what cost? The roster construction continues to be patchy. One year it's all defense, the next it's all offense, and never quite balanced. And somehow, he's still running the show. Training camp is right around the corner. In a few weeks, rookies and vets will report, and the questions are already mounting. Who's lining up across from Howard? Who's protecting Tua's blind side? Who steps up if another lineman goes down? These are not small details. They're the core of what could make or break the Dolphins' Super Bowl aspirations this year. And while we're at it, let's not ignore the ripple effect of wasting cap space. Even if you clear $10 million by trading Ramsey, using that money on Allen instead of stacking depth at corner or O-line could backfire spectacularly. Injuries are inevitable in the NFL. Depth is the difference between staying competitive in December and collapsing under pressure. Do you really want to look back in Week 14 with a playoff spot on the line and regret that we chose flash over substance? Let's also not forget that Keenan Allen isn't coming in for cheap. His last deal paid him $23 million for a single year in Chicago. His market value is still estimated at $11 million, unless he's taking a steep hometown discount, which, let's be clear, he has zero reason to do. Signing him would burn nearly all of Miami's current cap. And for what? To take reps away from younger players like Malik Washington who actually need the snaps to develop? Westbrook is already on the roster and getting paid next to nothing, and he produced last season. Why not build on that, rotate the young guys, and use that money to secure positions that are true liabilities? But no, let's chase another aging star and pretend it's going to fix a structurally flawed team. Look, Dolphins fans, we're not here to build a fantasy roster. We're here to win. And winning starts with being smart, not flashy. It means plugging the holes that keep springing leaks every season. It means not wasting Tua's window while he's still on a manageable deal. Because if the front office keeps making the wrong moves, we'll be looking at another year of what could have been. So before we wrap this up, let me ask you, if it was up to you, how would you spend that cap space? Would you go after a veteran corner, bolster the O-line, or would you actually consider signing Keenan Allen? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear from real fans who bleed aqua and orange. And hey, if you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and don't miss our next episode. We're diving deep into training camp battles. Videos on the screen now. Let's go Dolphins!